Yo, what up, TCK Podders? Sky and Lucas with you. Doing a quick hitter tonight. We want to just jump in and recap today's madness from the franchise tags that were announced, as well as the free agency talk. Before we get into that, if you are new to the program, please feel free to subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. We much appreciate it. Hit that bell, hit the like button. Also, make sure to subscribe and follow us anywhere on social media possible. Instagram, fantasy football _ TCK pod, on Twitter at TCK _ pod. And we're also on TikTok at TCK pod. Lucas, what's up, man? Today was quite a busy afternoon. Were you able to keep up with everything?
I'm not gonna lie. I've kind of I don't want to say checked out of NFL for the last month, but I've kind of been diving into a lot of the NCAA with March Madness stuff coming up, kind of setting up some stuff to start grinding best ball here post draft. To be honest, I didn't really I don't want to say care, I guess, but I wasn't super deep. I had one of my buddies texting me, kind of giving me updates, so I wasn't putting the Schefter tweet notifications on, but I was keeping up a little bit. I guess I'll more so be tuned in next week because I kind of felt like a lot of the tags were, I want to say expected in a sense or kind of anticipated, but I think we're definitely hit the part where, I don't know. I find this honestly a lot more exciting than what do they call it? The second half of the offseason post draft with going through rankings, all those things. I just kind of like this part because I think it kind of sets the tone for all that. So definitely in an exciting part. Combining that with March Madness, we didn't have that last year, so I think it'll be an exciting spring here for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I tried to keep up today as best I could. Following Adam Schefter, obviously that's a safe bet to keep in tune. But the reality is, man, I mean, it just felt like, between the hours of I'm West Coast, so 3 hours.
Yeah.
3 hours behind most of the news that drops. But I mean, between about 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., I feel like every 15, 20 minutes, there was something dropping in regards to the franchise tags. And of course, then free agency for those players that were not picked up by the franchise tags. So Lucas and I are going to dive in deeper to this next week as we actually dissect free agency overall. As free agents start landing where they're going to be, that is going to be a more in-depth conversation that we're going to have. But until then, right now, we're just kind of doing a quick hitter, rolling over the action that happened today. And Bobby and Dweez broke down their final set also of the they're doing the AFC divisional breakdowns for the coaching changes. 2 episodes this week. Make sure to check those out. Of course, this quick hitter as well. And then Lucas and I will be back with you live next week to get into the free agency. All right, man, we've got a lot to cover. Let's just kind of get in and cruise it here. We'll start with the quarterback position. Now, this happened 2 days ago, but we haven't talked about it yet on the podcast. Let's dive into Dak Prescott. Re-signed a 4-year, $160 million deal. Obviously, nice coin for him. $126 million guaranteed. They moved a lot of things around where they only actually take a $22 million cap hit this year, and then the average is going to be about $40 million, which is second only behind Patrick Mahomes at $45 million average over the next 4 years for him. So he's going to be there through his age 31 season, and at the quarterback position, obviously, still plenty in his prime, assuming he stays healthy. Now, let's not forget he's coming back after a compound fracture on his ankle. If you happen to be watching that game against the Giants live, it was quite disgusting. I mean, his leg literally, or his ankle and foot dislocated completely. I remember watching that game with the missus, and we literally thought his shoe came off. That's what it looked like. And then we realized it was actually his ankle bone and his cleat was on the other side of his leg, which was just horrendous, unfortunately, for him. So look, Dak Prescott has been very, very effective over the past 3 seasons. He's completed 67% of his passes, nearly 8 yards per attempt, 61 touchdowns, just 23 interceptions. He's rushed for 12 touchdowns as well. So obviously a dual threat quarterback, and the Cowboys do have the rest of their big weapons, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Zeke Elliott, Blake Jarwin, locked in for the next 3 to 4 years. But they're looking at cap struggles elsewhere as well. So do you agree with this move? Do you think that Dak Prescott comes back healthy? And do you think that the Cowboys ultimately, do you think this is going to take them to the Super Bowl? Because look, it was the plague of Tony Romo's career. He was a good to borderline low-level great quarterback statistically, but had the playoff issues. They have not been to the playoffs significantly since Troy Aikman, have not won a Super Bowl since Troy Aikman, and now Dak Prescott kind of wears that now in Dallas as well. They're loaded on offense, we know that, but can this move over the next 3 to 4 years get them actually over the hump and into a Super Bowl?
So yeah, so last year we both had the take where it was like we want to come out with at least one Cowboy, right, in your fantasy drafts. And I was stacking them all over the place because, like, I mean, it made sense, right? This offense is good, and I mean, they were good in the what 4.5, 5 games, if you will, that Dak played. I think it might have actually been 5.5, 6. Like, yes, the move is right from a sign your quarterback standpoint, and like, I'm not going to say that I don't think elsewhere. They did a really good job of making this contract work around the current state of the team. But I emphasize the current state of the team with a lot of emphasis. And I think this is the thing that I'm not a big like Twitter guy, but like made me mad yesterday because like people acted like them signing back the quarterback that started the 2-3 season for them last year, like made their team better somehow, right? Like I think this was like the confusion that like I had was like, okay, you signed back the guy that you were 2-3 with because your defense was so bad. Where do you upgrade, right? Like where is this team becoming good? Now they're going in with $4 million in cap space right now. So either, yeah, they can restructure contracts. If you talk to any Cowboys fan on Twitter, they're going to be like, yeah, well, they're going to restructure ABC, sign DEF, and draft these guys, right? Well, yeah, sure. Like maybe you do that in your Madden franchise, right? Or you do that in your hypothetical mock drafts, you do. But like in reality, you maybe get a third of the players you want on your team every year. So like they're sitting at $4 million in cap. From a fantasy perspective, obviously I'm going to be all in, right? If I was all in last year, nothing changes. The one thing that kind of scares me is the ADP kind of reflects what it was last year, and now CD Lamb's in the Amari Cooper range. So like we'll see kind of more so. I mean, it's only March. I'm not going to make any like fantasy ADP takes, but I think stacking them is definitely a viable option. I think it definitely gets Zeke back into the RB6-7 range, kind of like the not Danny getting botted. Yeah, a little bit, I guess. But I think the Cowboys fans are making from an overall team perspective to why they're going to be fine in terms of cap space. It's restructuring contracts, which we maybe get. I think I've maybe seen 4 actually worth the money this year, and we probably see maybe 10 a year. There's 32 teams in the league, so we'll see. The second is the salary cap is increasing. And I think this is an interesting take that I view a lot differently than a lot of people. So hypothetically, we're supposed to see a $5 million increase to the cap space, right, for this year. So all that would do is just take what the cap space is for each team, add $5 million. In a nutshell, yes, every team is getting $5 million more dollars.
It's all relevant, though.
It's all irrelevant. Like if you gave, I mean, I'm not going to like become political, but the stimulus money, right? If you give everyone X amount of dollars, no one really gains X amount of dollars, right? Because everyone's getting it. It's the same sense of like, if you give every team $5 million, the teams that already have a lot of cap space are now going to throw more money because they have more money than the Cowboys at the players the Cowboys want, right? Whereas teams like the Cowboys that are already super low, they can go from maybe offering insert player you want them to offer 4 mil to 9 mil. But a team like, I don't know, the Jets, who need a lot of defensive players, already have $72 million. Now they have 77. They're just going to offer $10, $11 million a year, right? So they're going to be able, the $5 million actually creates a higher advantage for the people higher up in the cap space total. So that being said, the Cowboys offense is going to be really good, yes. But we saw last year in that 5-game stretch with Dak that, yes, they played good teams in that stretch, but they lost to a shootout to the Browns, the Falcons. Actually, they came back and won against the Falcons on an onside kick. They lost to the Rams and the Seahawks. So sure, you can make the argument those are 3 playoff teams, but one team was in the AFC that was very front-loaded, and the other 2 clearly did not show in the playoffs they were worth being in the playoffs, besides the Rams carried by a defense. So I think it was a little bit of a setback in terms of – what would be the word? Like increasing expectations that nothing that changed, right? This should have been the first thing that happened for the Cowboys last offseason, and it wasn't. So they're really back to square one now with less cap space and honestly a worse defense than they were last year, hypothetically. So I think fantasy perspective, buy-in on the Cowboys, but from an overall perspective, I'm still optimistic, I guess, or like less than optimistic on what's going to happen because they are just so cash strapped coming in at 22nd. They're the lowest team above positive money left in the NFL. So we'll see kind of what they can do.
In redraft leagues, is Dak a top 5 quarterback for you right now?
I would go Mahomes. I'm still all in on Lamar, and I'll do more research around that. Josh Allen, I guess as of now, yes, because I can't rank Watson ahead of him because we don't know where he's going to be playing. I think he's ahead of Watson if Watson stays, but hypothetically, if Watson goes to Niners, Broncos, Panthers, I think I would rank Watson ahead of him.
How about
So
Russ
yeah,
Kyler?
no, I think Dak would be ahead of him because I think the Russ thing is concerning. Obviously, landing spot dependent, but even if he stays, and then Kyler, I think we saw a huge decline in his passing game last year. That is concerning. I know the shoulder issue was a thing, but like it's not like that's going to magically disappear. And I think I had Dak as my QB3 last year in his own tier below Lamar and Mahomes and above the rest of the guys. So he probably is going to honestly slide down below Josh Allen and possibly Watson compared to wherever Watson goes.
Okay. Let's talk about a couple other free agents to be and some other quarterbacks to kind of keep an eye on. Not a lot of sexy names here, but we're going to break down each position here. So let's go through the quarterbacks quickly. There's a lot of free agents to be at the quarterback position, but the most prominent and the guys that are most likely to land somewhere that may be fantasy relevant, Jameis Winston, ideally taking over the Saints position. We'll see if Breeze even actually retires. I have been, talking about for the last week on the Ryan D. Leaf show. I've been talking about the fact that I personally don't think that he's going to retire. I don't really want to get into that on this podcast. It's quite a lengthy take, but the reality is, like, if he was going to, I think he would have already. I'll just put it out there. He's got plenty of money, so why not take a huge pay cut, get another couple pieces around him, and stick around and try it one more time? That's just my take. We'll talk about that another time. So Jameis Winston there, still in New Orleans as of now, but he could leave if he doesn't take over that position. Mitch Trubisky still in Chicago, but could also move out if they bring in a bigger gun like a Russell Wilson or a Deshaun Watson, which I think is unlikely at this point, but it could still happen. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he has talks about retiring, but if he doesn't, he's going to land a spot and at least compete for a job. And Cam Newton, who is really interesting because he played absolutely dominant for about 2 or 3 weeks to start the season, but running the football. He had 11 rushing touchdowns, which is unbelievable for any player, especially a quarterback, obviously. But he just couldn't throw the ball. We've seen that for a couple of years since his 2015 MVP season. So I'm not even sure that he's going to get a starting position. He was on Brandon Marshall's show recently and basically was like, look, I have to get one of the best 32 starting quarterbacks. Like, I'm as good as at least the worst guy. And apples to apples, I would agree. If I really broke it down and took all the starters on paper, I'm probably going to rank him over 2 or 3 guys. But for longevity, for a team to actually commit into him to be the starter, because I don't know that Cam's ego is going to let him sit on the bench and wait or compete for a turn like Ryan Fitzpatrick is able to do. That's going to be concerning. Obviously, if he signs in a better position, it could be good for fantasy as a runner only, but basically only in super flex at this point because I do not want him as my single quarterback. Another couple names way deep in the chart that might have another opportunity if the chips fall: Alex Smith and Andy Dalton. So we don't need to break these down too in depth. Again, Lucas, we're going to dive into all this stuff in the next couple of weeks, but quickly on those names: Winston, Trubisky, Fitzpatrick, Newton, Alex Smith, and Andy Dalton. Anybody jump off the page of like you're actually kind of paying attention, like what is going to happen with somebody? I know that you are kind of the house Trubisky fan.
Yeah, I think the Trubisky thing is interesting because, one, Dwayne's been kind of pumping him with, like, I'm not going to call them stats, but they're stats, but like it's the facts, right? Like there's the preconceived notion that like because Mahomes and Watson went behind Trubisky sucks. Like listen, he went to the playoffs. He got a playoff win, right? Like he got benched because he was thrown in a fire pit with a coach that was on a short leash, right? He wasn't he wasn't in a spot where the coach could take a couple of losses. Like he had to make a move. And I guess like I don't know what I'm missing when I watch these games, but like when he plays, this offense is good, right? The Bears offense is good because he's a playmaker, right? He just needs people around him. So I think Trubisky's one to watch. Obviously Winston, I'm a big Winston guy. The whole Breeze thing, I mean, honestly, they're already paying Breeze. They took a restructure, so why not him come back, right? If they can get some pieces around him. They're going to have Troutman over Jared Cook, which I think is an upgrade. I think they're going to attack a receiver in the draft, and they can go Sanders, another receiver, Michael Thomas with Kamara back with Taysom Hill. I think there's enough convincing power to get Breeze back. So I don't even know if it's saying like go get Breeze in a dynasty league, but like honestly, like I'm probably not going to hurt you, right? But Winston's a good one to watch. Fitzpatrick, I think, is one that I've been growing. The idea of him coming to the Broncos, I think that's an idea that
I like that actually. Gunslinger, why not?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think the Broncos are at a point where is the offense bad? Is Drew Lock bad? Is no one bad? They just haven't been playing together. And I think the way to bridge that is like, listen, get a guy that can just throw the ball and you'll figure out what the answer is, right? So I kind of like that idea. I mean, if he goes there, he'd be a 1-year dynasty rental, maybe a sleeper in fantasy, but nothing more than that. And yeah, the Cam Newton thing's interesting because like I don't want to say the Patriots weren't a good fit for him because like they kind of were, but like I don't know what team's a good fit for him. So it'll be interesting to yeah, but like they don't really I don't know. Like they have Antonio Gibson, McKissick, like sure, I guess. I don't know. I think the thing with him is like when he signs somewhere, at least from what I view, is he's gonna sign somewhere to probably play significant snaps. Whereas like Fitzpatrick might come into the Broncos and like be like, all right, listen, like what happened last year, right? Like Tua is here. You might start week 1. Tua will play. Drew Lock will play hypothetically, but you're on the backup. He came in and won the Raiders game, right? And then got benched the next week. So like there's kind of like that like pullback with Fitzpatrick that I don't think is there yet with Cam Newton, just due to Cam Newton still has some leadership, if you will, in the tank. But I think those are the 4 guys. Smith and Dalton. Yeah, I mean, I think they're kind of in similar roles to their kind of career. Yeah, so just kind of, I think Trubisky and Fitzpatrick are probably the 2 that I would kind of like. If you're trying to make moves in dynasty leagues, you're trying to do in best ball, trying to gain some edge on ADP come post signing, the 2 guys I'd be attacking right now.
And Jameis, obviously, if Drew retires, or look, if you have Drew Brees somehow on a dynasty team, obviously he's not sexy in dynasty anymore, but if you still have him just because you've had him for years or whatever, just go get Jameis. He's cheap right now because he doesn't have a job currently, but you have that rare quarterback handcuff, if you will. Okay, man, let's jump into the running backs here. A lot of running backs to cover. Again, we don't need to go in depth on all of these guys, but the top names in the build, these are players that did not get the franchise tag. Therefore, they will be hitting free agency as the league year opens next week on the 17th. They are as follows: Aaron Jones, 26 years old. Chris Carson, 26 as well. Leonard Fournette, also 26. Kenyon Drake, 27. Le'Veon Bell, still under 30, but he certainly looked old the last couple of years. 29. James Conner, 25. Mark Ingram, 31. Todd Gurley, 26. James White, 29. And then we have a couple wild cards here: Marlon Mack, Jerick McKinnon, who people still want to believe in, Mike Davis, Carlos Hyde, Wayne Gallman, Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman, Adrian Peterson, yada, yada, yada. So let's talk about Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, playoff Lenny, Kenyon Drake, Le'Veon Bell, I guess, but James Conner, Todd Gurley, and James White. I think those are like the realistic. They will land somewhere and most likely be fantasy rosterable minimum.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was kind of eye-opening to me. Like, I think the league is finally buying into, like, why the hell do you pay running backs? Because the track record is bad, right? Like, it's like, why do people think the Jets are going to be good? Because the track record is bad, right? The problem I have with, like, trying to make, what would be the word? I guess, like, assumptions from this is, like, there's a clear tier break between Aaron Jones and everyone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if that tier break is existent, why didn't he get tagged or mentioned about a contract, right? Like it was straight up like, we're not tagging him. The same with Carson, same with Fournette, same with Drake. And I feel like the Packers are a very transparent franchise in what they do, where like I feel like something's missing there. So I mean, for one, this creates a ton of openings, right, in these offenses. Packers for one, they have AJ Dillon, but maybe he's the guy. I don't know. But Jamal Williams is also a free agent. Chris Carson, the Seattle is wide open. I don't know who's going to go there. The Bucks are hypothetically open if you can get a more pass catching, elusive back. The Cardinals are wide open. The Steelers are wide open. I want to say that the Falcons are wide open. The Patriots are honestly kind of wide open. Niners hypothetically are wide open, right? Like there's a lot of teams that
Broncos even, man. I mean, Philip Lindsay's a free
Yeah.
agent, and we know that Royce Freeman's not going to get the shot, and Melvin Gordon, we'll see what happens. So they could use another body as well. Pittsburgh, and yeah, there's a lot of options.
So there's like kind of my advice have been around running backs and sort of dynasty leagues is you're never going to have the perfect window. I think that's a thing that people try to act like there's like timing of trading and trade value and like that's non-existent, right? Because like it's a you can't measure trade value, so why are we going to act like we can predict when trade value is high or low, right? Because something could, like Mahomes could get traded tomorrow, right? You know, I mean, obviously it's not going to happen, but like this crazy could happen. Like Antonio Brown could come out of jail back to the Buccaneers, right? Like these things are crazy that could happen, and just dynasty value just goes all over the place. So what my advice for running backs is, like, if you want Aaron Jones or you want AJ Dillon or like you want these guys, go get him now. Go sell him now, because the value you have right now is the most certain you're going to be on their value. Speculative to post free agency when it could go higher, sure, but it could go through the way lower. It could go down to zero, right? So you need to just go make these moves now, because in the end, 50% is better than 0% 100% of the time. And that's like the take with the zero RB strategy, right? Is taking the volume on receivers is 100% better, even if it's only hitting 50% of the time, right? Because if you're playing a lot of leagues, if you have a deep dynasty roster, like if you're getting continuously 50%, 50%, 50%, you're not taking zeros, where your teammate is taking 100% three zeros. 150 is more than 100%, right? Like these are just random numbers thrown out, but like that's the way to look at it. So one of these guys will be on Seattle. One of these guys will be on the Falcons. Hypothetically, one of these guys will be on the Packers. Probably, I would think Jones, but we'll see. I don't know where this puts him for redraft value, because these aren't guys that we loved in redraft anyways, and now the image of them kind of just makes it through, kind of go down. But I think from a draft perspective, this like quietly opens up the door for a lot of first round running backs. But something that I was kind of like negligent to prior to today. Falcons, they're not going to draft a first rounder, but they might go early second. Steelers, Packers, Bucks might at the end of round one, pick 32. Trying to think of other teams. Cardinals could. They're in a perfect spot to grab ETN if they really want him. So I think it'll be interesting, because I think we always kind of hype up the don't pay running backs, but like we finally saw that right this year, and I think people like aren't realizing that as much as like I think I took away from the non-tags on literally any of the running backs. Not even one got the tag. So
yeah, absolutely. That was the biggest surprise, is that no running backs got a franchise tag. Last year was Derrick Henry, and I can't think of another one off top, but Derrick Henry for sure. And that changes significantly with their contract talks. So that was surprising. But look, man, you've been saying on this podcast for 3 years that you shouldn't pay running backs. And, you know, I don't think you and I are in the full camp of like the fun Twitter saying, which is like running backs don't matter, because that's bullshit.
yeah.
But I know what people mean by that like most guys are replaceable. Yeah. However, they do matter. Obviously, a good running back or a good running scheme or something changes your entire team. But as far as paying the running back, I get it. And a lot of times it doesn't make sense if you don't have a completely trend-setting back like a Derrick Henry, like a Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, somebody up at the top that can literally change a game by himself. like, look, we've seen Zeke Elliott, like, used to do it, doesn't anymore. Saquon's been hurt for 2 years. You know, we have a lot of these guys, like Joe Mixon hasn't been that guy. Kenyon Drake didn't become that guy. Josh Jacobs isn't that guy. Miles Sanders hasn't been that guy yet. Austin Eckler, hurt last year, but dynamic, but hasn't been that guy. There's a lot of running backs that we want to be that top echelon dude, and they just frankly haven't been. And we have evidence of a guy like Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, who were literally the number one running back in fantasy football and frankly top in the NFL just 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And they're basically irrelevant in NFL terms and certainly in fantasy as well. So the team's got to be careful with that. Okay, man, let's jump into the wide receivers here as well. So this is where things get a little spicy. We did have a couple franchise tags for wide receivers. So Allen Robinson did receive the franchise tag from Chicago, which is nobody is excited about this, including him. 27 years old, projects to get about 18 million. I mean, he caught a career high 121 passes last year, despite the bad quarterback play. So the dude himself is a fucking animal. We all know that Allen Robinson would be a top 5 wide receiver if he had a top 20 quarterback, but he hasn't yet in his career. So Allen Robinson will remain in Chicago. He is not going to hit free agency. Kenny Golladay also will be hitting free agency. Excuse me, I skipped over one. Chris Godwin was going to get the franchise tag as well from Tampa Bay. They bring him back. We saw this like in the Super Bowl parade. Bruce Arians kind of yelled across the stage into the mic, like, you know, your ass isn't going anywhere. Sure enough, Brady spoke up loud enough, and Mike Evans took a pay cut, and they bring in Chris Godwin, looking to run it back in 2021 for the repeat. Chris Godwin's still 24 years old. Hopefully he will get paid for himself next year after a big season, $16.5 million. And again, I mean, he's very effective when he's getting the ball. We saw Mike Evans kind of start lackluster to start the season, but went nuclear in the second half of the season. So we definitely want to see both these receivers make it happen, but Chris Godwin's going to be, I think, the most interesting in that scheme. Larry Fitzgerald role with Bruce Arians, yada, yada. So before we get into the free agencies, let's talk about the 2 franchise tag players, Allen Robinson with the Bears and Chris Godwin with the Bucs.
Yeah, I think the A-Rob to the Bears, like, to me, that this signals they're going to upgrade at quarterback, right? Like, I think
they have to. He is foaming at the mouth right now, unless there was a conversation behind closed doors, which happens all the time, because guys like us just fucking hear it from 3, 4, 5th party, right? So there's conversations happening in Chicago. I hope that is, look, Allen, we got to lock you in first, bro, but we are going to at least bring in competition for Trubisky. And hopefully something. Now, look, if it's Watson or Wilson, obviously that's the jackpot. But they've either said, look, we're going to trade up and get a quarterback, or we're going to bring in somebody with your influence, just new blood in general in the building. We're going to get rid of fucking Foles bunk ass, and we're not going to make you have to rely on Mitch Trubisky, although they have been successful overall, not allowing Allen Robinson to hit his ceiling yet. So I have to believe, because this deal was made and he has been so vocal about not wanting to play for subpar bullshit anymore, there has to be something in the works that will be brewing in the next week or two when free agency opens up.
Yeah, like I think to me what this opens up is Trubisky comes back and they get another big name playmaker, or A-Rob comes back. I know they franchise tag him, and to some people that might be like, well, they gave him more money than they probably would have given him if they would have just given him a normal contract, right? Like, yes, but I think if the plan is to go get Russell Wilson, which hypothetically that's what I think they're going to do, there's got to be some type of money. Like they had this preconceived notion of the money they need going in. They're sitting negative in cap space right now, but they'll have a couple cuts and they'll match up the contract with Russell Wilson. I mean, but when it comes to fantasy, like if you are trying to move A-Rob's fantasy value up and down, like you don't understand the concept of his fantasy value in the first place, like it's kind of what it is. Like he's going to be the wide receiver 6 to 8 every year, unless he falls into the right end of touchdown variance, even with Russ. Like say they trade for Russell Wilson right now, like he's not going higher than my wide receiver 6, just because like you can only get so many targets, right? You can fall into the right side of touchdown variance. We can't predict that. So he's right around the wide receiver 6. I think they're going to go get a quarterback like Russ. I think they bring back Trubisky and they target a Rashad Bateman. It sounds like Elijah Moore, Tony, Rondale Moore, kind of in that range of receivers, or they trade back and just try and accumulate picks, hypothetically. So that's kind of my take on the Bears. And I kind of hope, because I like Nagy from like an offensive building perspective, and I like A-Rob, I like Trubisky. Just I think they kind of catch the wrong side of like theory around like building a football team. I think they kind of they're building hypothetically like the Colts kind of build, but they just like are missing a couple of pieces where people don't put two and two together. So I think they're getting there. This is a move in the right direction. And Chris Godwin, yeah, I was pretty big on the Bucks are just going to run it back with the exact team they had. I think that's going to entail getting AB back, and then I think honestly we didn't talk about James White. I think that's where James White's going to end, totally. And finish his career with Brady one more year.
So I was, and I don't mean to cut you off, but while you bring up James, I was going to bring that up too, and we just skipped over it. But Leonard Fournette's a free agent, right? So they're not bringing him back, most likely. So you have Ronald Jones, who played well when he was healthy, but we know that over the last 3 years, he's kind of had the doghouse situation, a fumble, a missed block, a drop pass, and he just fucking gets sat. That's just how it is. Uber talented, but on a short leash. Then you have Keyshawn Vaughn, who honestly was like getting the hype last year of the next James White, if you will. He battled injuries, rookie situation, and of course he got just bulldozed by Rojo and Leonard Fournette, so he didn't really get the opportunity. Do you think they would run like a three-head monster and essentially be like Ronald Jones early downs, I would imagine, and then James White as the third down back? Obviously, Tom Brady and he have 10 years of experience, and then have like Keyshawn Vaughn in the mix as well. I also agree that James White would go there. Just makes sense. It's the Brady effect. We saw everybody else go down there. Your boy Edelman will probably come out of retirement once he's back to health and head down there too. But I think that makes the most sense. If that happens, that's almost that same kind of conversation that we used to have with Edelman and James White a couple of years ago when they were both healthy and PPR machines, both of them respectively. Is there going to be enough on the bone for Godwin to get, 120 plus targets and hopefully, 80, 90 receptions in PPR, and then James White to also get James White numbers being that typical third down back? Do you think that if James White goes down there, another trusty source for Tom Brady, that Godwin would lose out at all? Or is this one of those, like, we believe in you, you're the guy?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about Edelman per se. I
don't think Edelman's going to go there. That was kind of a tongue in cheek. I was more saying the comparison between Edelman being that slot guy that Chris Godwin is for Brady and James White coming out of the backfield. The comment of Edelman down to Tampa Bay was kind of tongue in cheek, but it's more the comparison of Godwin being the Edelman for the offense and James White out of the backfield if he were to go down there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the primary reason they signed Fournette was one, value of money, and third down back role. It just happened that Fournette hit stride right as he needed to in the playoffs. I mean, they could sign him back, sure, but I think
played really well. He played really well, and he's still young, which is crazy. Yeah. I mean, like he got it down. Let me check this really quick. Take 2 seconds.
25,
26. So he's younger. He's as young as Aaron Jones, and he feels older than Aaron Jones and Chris Carson. He's the same age. He feels older than Kenyon Drake. Drake's a year older than him. And Todd Gurley's the same age. He feels older than I think than he is, just because of his wear and tear in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and according to Fantasy Football Twitter, he sucks because of volume on the Jaguars. I guess that was the take from last year.
Well, he scored 3 touchdowns and pissed everyone off, and that's when he became bad, and people didn't realize that, like, the team is fucking horrible. And there's so many rabbit holes, man. James Robinson, I think, needs to get more credit strictly because of this conversation with Leonard Fournette. He had the same terrible offense and did more with it. And I know everyone's scared for the repeat, so am I. But to fully fade the man, I think is bogus.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it is kind of funny how that works, though. Like when Fournette gets those numbers, he sucks because he was the fifth overall pick. But like when Robinson does the same thing on a worse team, or honestly on a better team, actually probably, like he's pretty good though because he was undrafted. So like it's just very subjective thinking. No, Fournette is good. Like if you went to the Broncos right now, like I wouldn't be opposed, right? We signed Gordon for $4 million or $5 million a year or something stupid. Like if we got Fournette for that, sure,
How about
that
him
makes
in
sense.
Atlanta?
Yeah, like and people would fade him because bad volume. But those are the people that also drafted like Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, more names here that I can think of. They faded David Montgomery for DeAndre Swift because bad volume, right? Like they don't like fantasy points, they like upside. That's just how fantasy works. But besides the point, receivers, yeah, I mean, I think James White, it makes sense for him to go there, right? They're running back the team. Brady's going to retire after he probably wins it again this year. They have to play in the weak NFC. The NFC really got worse. I didn't really get much better. So I think it's kind of at a point where it makes sense for them to go there. But in terms of these other receivers, I think this is where it creates a lot of.
Why don't you rattle them off real quick? Just
Yeah.
maybe the top 6 or 7.
Yeah, so we got Juju is the big one, Will Fuller, Corey Davis, Curtis Samuel, Ty, AJ Green, Marvin Jones, Aguilar, Sammy Watkins, AB. I consider those those are like I guess 2 tiers, if you will, maybe 3. So I put Juju in his own tier because I don't get why people think he sucks. I mean, he's 24, right? Like this is the Fournette thing. Like the man is 24 years old. At them next time. No, Nick, I can't do that because that's what I do on Twitter.
Notorious. We need the shout out, bro. We're sitting here with we need the view count up, and you're the YouTube god, bro. Help us out.
Yeah, okay, well, let me pull up just Juju's numbers. Okay, let's see here. So I'm seeing a lot of like people are ranking like the current rookies, not even on a team, like in the rankings right now, like ahead of Juju in their dynasty rankings. Okay, so Juju's numbers. Let's go by a per game basis because injuries, whatever happened. So he averages 64 yards a game in his career, 0.45 touchdowns, 12 yards per reception, and 7 targets a game. And somewhere
Solid.
along the line, he sucks, I guess. I don't know what I missed last year. Obviously, he had a down year. Sure.
It's
But the
all
whole team was,
expectation, bro. You know how it
yeah.
is. It's expectation. It's that AB leaves. He's going to be the new AB. What he did 2 years ago. Like we put people in our mindset. That's why you and I and Bobby and Dwayne and our brand here, we stress so heavily not to big up Notorious. Shouts out Notorious Fantasy. Go subscribe, follow, hit the bell. Y'all know what to do. Big up, Nick. We stress so much not to set expectations for players without being able to be running audible because you do this. Like Juju is supposed to be this good because AB left and blah, blah, blah. And if he's not, he's still, a top wide receiver, but because he isn't weekly or blowing the fucking doors off again, we shun these players. And that's not cool.
Yeah, sure, he had a down year comparative to ADP. Yes, I drafted him. Like, he wasn't why I lost my leagues, right? He had 831 yards and nine touchdowns when he was sharing the field with Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and James Washington, and Ebron. Ebron had a really good year, too. Like, what do you expect him to do, right? He's 24 years old. Like, so if you're in a dynasty league right now, I mean, if you can give the 108 or 109, 108 through 112 for Juju, like do it, right? And it's because we see Justin Jefferson last year, right, breaking rookie records. Like, sure, one in every X amount of years post merger, since we kept stats, like this is gonna happen. But you're gonna tell me you'd rather have, I don't know, Jamar Chase at age 22 in a nutshell over a guy that has 3 year, no wait, sorry,
3,
4 years of NFL experience at 2 years older and going to be going to a team that's going to pay him the bag, then a team that's going to draft him, probably a bad team in Jamar Chase, honestly, in the NFL. Like, this doesn't make sense, right? Where this discrepancy is of, like, where he went bad. I mean, sure, yeah, he did TikTok dances on the midfield logo, and then they lost to, like, the football team the Bengals almost lost to. Like, sure. Okay, but what do you expect to happen when we feed this, like, social media, like, stuff into these guys, right? That's just what happens. Like, so Juju's the one that, like, I mean, if I'm picking a destination, I want it to be the Colts because, I mean, it would make them really good, right? Like, I think Wentz is going to be fine. Juju would be good there, but no matter where he goes, like, I don't think it messes with his value because, like, I mean, we saw his value was just like, in a sense, a target hog, but like he's just a playmaker, right? Like, it's not like it really affected him. The Raiders have been thrown out. Patriots, I think, are an option. Lots of teams, but I think that's the one that, like, if you're going in dynasty leagues right now, like, go get him now. because his value is going to rise back to what it should be, hypothetically post signing. Will Fuller, that one's actually a little shocking to me that he didn't get tagged. I kind of figured he would get tagged in an attempt to tag and trade based off the Watson decision, because to me, them not tagging him makes me think he's gone. But like, it's kind of weird because I can't think of a team that he would actually sign with. I don't know. I don't know where.
Green Bay, he and Green Bay, I think for the last two trade deadlines, definitely last year, this year, 2020, they basically were about to make it happen and just frankly didn't. So they make the most sense. A team like, it's not Shanahan's scheme, but a team like the 49ers, who do not have a true burner deep threat, because my boy Jalen Hurd, who I think is the best wide receiver on the team, can't stay healthy, unfortunately. But a team like that, honestly, it's not a sexy pick, but both New York teams could use him. A burner. Look, Darius Slayton's awesome. Denzel Mims, we'll see what happens. But they both just need a streaker. And look, we know that Will Fuller is very good at what he does. He's not Deshaun Watson, or Deshaun Jackson. Nobody quite is to that stratosphere. But he is the next level right down if he can stay healthy, right? We saw him be absolutely dominant before he got kicked out for PEDs. So we'll see what happens. But I think he's a great catch, and I do see him. Look, the fucking Raiders could grab him too, which would be terrible potentially, unless they just let Carr try to throw bombs all day. But another couple great ones that I think are kind of sleepers here because they haven't been sexy over the last couple of years. Like, everyone knows Juju, everyone knows Will Fuller, everyone knows T.Y. Hilton and AJ Green over the years. But Corey Davis and Curtis Samuel, I think, are the two like free dynasty league nuggets right now. Like, Juju's going to cost you because even if people are upset, it's like, yeah, but he's 24 and like we've seen him do it before. And if he lands with the Packers or the anybody else that's really good, like there's that upside. Will Fuller, again, we know the upside there. Corey Davis has been like a bleh, right? Spare me for 5 years and never hit it in Tennessee. And then you have Curtis Samuel, who is a hybrid running back, who is not, your typical wide receiver anyway, but did really well last year. And I think in a scheme like the 49ers or like Washington that likes to, the Rams even, that like to get their wide receivers out in space or bubble screens, jet sweeps, things like that, putting him in Kansas City or something to be another weapon out there, I think would just be phenomenal for both those players, because I believe in the athlete personally. And a lot of dynasty decisions, which you and I are going to get into in the next couple of weeks, dynasty, when you say, go get Juju right now before he lands, go get Corey Davis, go get, these guys, Curtis Samuel, Will Fuller. It's easy to say that. The reality is, though, you have to think of do you trust the player individually, where no matter where they land, you're willing to trust them? That's what it comes down to for me in Dynasty. Because here's the reality. If Juju lands in fucking Detroit or something, I'm not stoked on that. I don't want that situation. So am I willing to go get him with the chance that happens? Probably not. But a Corey Davis or, Will Fuller, they have, I think, the personal upside to make it happen. So even if they land in a Baltimore, where Lamar is not going to light up the scoreboard with them, we know that they could have big play potential and they should have multiple opportunities to score. So just be careful if you're going out to farm your players. So quick thoughts on Corey Davis and Curtis Samuel, and we'll get going.
No, I think Davis proved last year, why I think he's a top 30 receiver in terms of normal receiver, NFL receiver in the league. He just the offense just needed to transition into the offense that produced him. And to me, it's kind of weird they don't want him back. I don't think they have, they're kind of worried about other issues on the team, which is viable. But I think, to your point of if Juju goes to Detroit, why would you trade for him, right? And I think that's where you can gain the edge in your dynasty leagues, because hypothetically, you're going to give the 108 for Juju, right? Maybe you have to give the 106, right? So maybe you have to give up Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith. And I get the trade philosophy behind that, but Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith aren't dropping past the Giants at worst in the NFL draft. So would you rather have an experienced receiver on at worst going to the Giants, or would you rather have a rookie receiver with Daniel Jones with whoever the hell is throwing the ball for the Eagles, with whoever the hell is throwing the ball for the Lions. On that capital, that means they have to try and get them the ball. Like, and if they don't perform, like all these things happen. So like, that's kind of my viewpoint. And we probably turn it into an episode. I have a league where I have 10 of the 12 first round picks in one of these drafts. And I added my buddy as a co-owner because I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. Right. Like, and I have all these offers already. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I can completely turn this team into a contender just because people, there's always like, everyone's like, don't trade your picks until the draft. Like, sure, people overvalue the picks all year. Like, it's a thing that like, they think that everyone's going to hit on Justin Jefferson. They think everyone's going to hit on not Cam Akers. I'm spitballing here. Jonathan Taylor. Like, sure. But in the long run of it, like Jonathan Taylor was good for 3 weeks. Cam Akers was good for 2 playoff games that, I mean, if anyone's counting, those don't exist in the fantasy league. Like, so he was not good in the fantasy league. So this is kind of more, we'll talk about it more next week when all these players do officially sign. I feel like there's a lot of edge to be gained right now and even post-draft because I think people overvalue a lot of different things going into it.
A couple other names to keep an eye on that may fly under the radar. Marvin Jones, my man, always undervalued. He still has it in the tank. We saw him take over that number 1 role with the beat-up Lions when Golladay went down last year just fine. He'd be a great guy to land somewhere competent like Green Bay or something like that. So keep an eye on Marvin Jones. Again, probably free in Dynasty. Nelson Aguilar had a nice resurgence with the Raiders last year. Keep an eye on him. And then, of course, we have Antonio Brown. My boy Josh Reynolds for the Rams that never got a chance. Rashard Higgins, potentially John Ross if he stays healthy as well. Okay, man, let's jump into the tight ends really quickly and we'll get out of here. Free agent tight ends. Hunter Henry of the Chargers, 26 years old. Rob Gronkowski of the Bucks. I have to imagine that he's coming back with Brady at 31, so don't consider him an actual free agent. Jonnu Smith, though, is going to be a free agent. I think that's a great pickup there, 25 years old. And Gerald Everett, who's your man? You've been repping Gerald Everett for a couple seasons here. The other tight end outside of Tyler Higbee with the Rams. A couple of the names, Kyle Rudolph, Jared Cook, Trey Burton, and then some older guys as well. So let's talk about Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, and Gerald Everett's possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was kind of shocked that all 3 of those guys, like I figured one of them would kind of come back. I mean, we'll start off with the bigger one, Kyle Rudolph leaving, and people are probably like, sure, what is he trying to talk about? But I mean, I think it's
Big Irv.
Yeah, I think it brings to the point where if you listen to, oh gosh, what would it have been? Two weeks ago, whenever me and Dwayne were on talking about the tight end recap. The tight end recap, we were referencing some guys that like go by. I mean, sure, go by now, but guys that like I think didn't really come across as like potential. What would be the word? Think about players, right? But here we are, 2 weeks later, right? Irv Smith, last year he played 13 games or 14 games. 6 of them he was a tight end 1, a top 12 tight end. The other 6 he was outside of the top 24, and the other 2 had 0 points, right? So like we know the talent is there when he gets the production. I mean, now he's going to get the production, but like I think people are gonna. I might make the take, and people might make the take that like it's too late now because the ADP rises with it. But we'll wait a while before that even happens to like, because I think when it comes to a guy like that, you want to look at the overall ADP and not the ADP within the tight end. I think that's a little bit of a different conversation, but that's a big news. If Irv Smith does deploy that sort of 3rd in or 4th in like targets role on the Vikings, I think that's a very valuable role, even though they do run the ball a lot. But we've seen that the targets are very efficient. Justin Jefferson last year, Thielen, Dalvin Cook. I mean, honestly, Kyle Rudolph, those were efficient red zone targets when he was getting them. So that's another one. And I guess another one too, Jared Cook, Adam Troutman should retain tight end 1 duties. He was a guy that, I mean, if you want to watch college tape and get your mind blown, that's the one guy you want to watch college tape and get your mind blown. I don't watch much tape, if any, but it's literally like playing Madden. What he was doing to the Division II kids at Dayton would have been 2 years ago. So go watch that if you want Adam Troutman perspective. But yeah, the main guys, Henry Smith and Everett. I kind of want to make the take that they're going to do some weird like interchanging tight end swap with these guys that like
same teams.
Yeah,
just
because
like carousel. Yeah.
I mean, like name teams that need tight ends, right? And this is the conversation me and Dwayne had was like, well, why wouldn't Everett and Smith get tagged? Because like I don't see where. I mean, Pitts is coming in, right? He's a top 10 pick. Okay, outside of Pitts, like I'd rather have these three guys, right? Like so, like it's kind of like I'm confused where the market kind of sits for these guys because like I mean, we could go through and rattle off every team that doesn't need a tight end, but like teams don't need tight ends, right? Except for the teams that just lost their tight ends, right? So it's kind of like in a weird spot where, I mean, the Jaguars are one that Dwayne is kind of hyping on, but like outside of that, like Patriots, maybe I guess. Like I don't freaking know where these guys are going, so it's kind of a weird spot. Going to be going into this week.
If they use them, I heard the CBS podcast. I think I had a good take on like the New England situation. After a while, we need to stop saying we can't wait for the next New England tight end.
Correct.
Because it's not a New England tight end thing. Rob Gronkowski was a fucking machine. That's the difference. So you look at a team and be like, oh man, well, this guy was really, really good. Okay, was that guy really good, or was the system good for him? Like, so you need to be kind of careful with that. I agree, because sometimes, I mean, look, we saw. I got to give Bobby a shout out every single time this comes up, and he always blushes because I fucking, call him out on this like every 3 podcasts. But I was shocked last year that he brought up Logan Thomas. He and I did one of our first episodes together was tight end rankings. Wasn't sexy. It's tight ends. We all know it's kind of boring, whatever. And we had like our top 18, 24 tight ends. I didn't even fucking know Logan Thomas was in the league anymore. And Bobby had him at like whatever, tight end 1, like 12 or something. And I was like, what the fuck are you thinking? And it was really simple. Ron Rivera's coming over to Washington. Ron Rivera basically had Greg Olsen be a dominant top 3 fantasy tight end for a decade. That's his system. So let's just do it over here. Sure enough, Logan Thomas dusts off the cleats. Well, it used to be a quarterback, used to be a receiver. Now he's a tight end. Touchdown heavy, doesn't matter. Boom. Robert Tonyan comes out of the woodworks in a usually not a tight end dominant offense, but he had 11 touchdowns, right? That's not sustainable, obviously, but we'll see what happens. We saw Delaney Walker be very good in Tennessee for years. Jonnu just can't stay healthy. If he stayed healthy, he's a freak of nature athletically. So my concern with your take there is, and I like the idea of it, I think it's quite creative actually, Darnell Parham is just, he's there. He did okay in the game that Hunter Henry left last year. Also Anthony Ferkser is there in Tennessee as well, who also had a couple good games when Jonnu was gone. So again, unless like these aren't Travis Kelce's, these aren't George Kittle's, so it's kind of next man up at the tight end position for some of these teams. Whereas I do think like a Jacksonville with a rookie quarterback, the Bears could upgrade with, I know they have Cole Kmet, but Jimmy Graham retired. Seattle needs a tight end. I mean, how about Jonnu Smith as a move tight end in Seattle's offense with Russell Wilson? I mean, that to me is a great move that I don't think anybody's necessarily considering. So I agree with you. These guys got to land somewhere, and they're great players individually. So I certainly would go look for them in fantasy because look, we know that nobody's going to be Travis Kelce and George Kittle and Waller and Mark Andrews year after year. But if you could get what Zach Ertz was for 3 or 4 years, which is 3rd or 4th tight end, you still have a tremendous upside advantage. So go try to get one of these free agent tight ends for free right now, and don't overspend, of course. But I do think that athletically, wherever they land, if they get used, they'll be just fine.
Yeah, I agree.
Any final thoughts on free agency? Of course, we are a fantasy program. We're not going to get into defensive moves, although there was quite a few, and of course, more of those will land. So maybe, we got to throw some shout outs to the DST folks out there. So maybe we'll cover a couple of the big defensive splashes once they land for DST purposes, but we'll hold off on that for now. Any final thoughts on any particular franchise tag, free agent to be, any biggest surprise or whatever? Again, Dwayne and Bobby on the channel are doing AFC coaches breakdowns for the next 2 episodes. Lucas and I just wanted to give you, I mean, this is supposed to be a quick hitter, quote unquote, and here we are an hour into it because there's a lot to cover right away to reflect, but we haven't really dove into numbers or anything else or landing spots and predictions, and we haven't done all that yet as we're getting basically breaking news just a couple hours ago. So tune in next week as Lucas and I actually do make our predictions. We had a question in our comments, where does Aaron Jones land? We have a lot of these questions between the two of us that we will get into. So, Lucas, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I mean, not really. I think it'll be a very, very interesting offseason, which we will touch on without the combine and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think the combine really sets the tone, which that's a whole other fucking conversation about why the theory changes around these prospects, and free agency signings, why the cap space is irrelevant. But I guess we could make it quick. What is the one move that you want, like, your team, so like the Niners and the Broncos, to make? So people know for next week, because I don't know. I mean, it starts next Tuesday, but an episode might not get out till like Wednesday, I guess. So, like, what is the one move you would want for your team?
Offensively speaking, only because of fantasy, for me, it's got to be a true number one. And I think for non-49er fans, that might seem surprising with Debo and Ayuk and George Kittle, whatever. By true number one, I mean a guy that is going to run a 15-yard post routinely and pick up a first down and blah, 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 because we have every other position on the field covered. So a true number one, a Kenny Galladay, a Will Fuller, even a Corey Davis, somebody that can stretch the field. I would like that. Marvin Jones, even for veteran leadership, would be nice. And obviously we need to do a quarterback swap. You all know how I feel about James. I'm really into Zach Wilson, but Lucas is right, or Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson.
Lucas is right, though. He's not going to fall. Okay, so maybe Trey Lance. I like that move a lot, too. I'm not huge on Mac Jones, but after talking to Ryan Lee for the last 2 weeks, I am getting more and more confident on his just professional football ability. You need a Big Ben here and there amongst all the flashy guys, and Mac Jones could be that guy. So no matter what, the Niners need to do something. Honestly, I brought this up a couple weeks ago with Bobby. I would love for the Niners to make a play at Sam Darnold. I really would. He's still very young. He's very coachable. He needs to get the heck out of the Jets, and I think that Kyle Shanahan over the next 2 to 5 years could really mold Sam Darnold and bring out that potential. And I think we have everything else around him, and he can throw it deep. He can scramble a little bit. Good head on his shoulders. Good clubhouse guy. I kind of like Sam Darnold there. Lucas, how about you at the Broncos?
I mean, in a nutshell, I guess I want Trey Lance. We'll see how that goes. Pick 9. I think – I don't know. I don't – I think defense is the move, hypothetically, but I don't have like any specific name. I don't want to say we don't need anything on offense. We just need a quarterback, but it's kind of true in that sense. So we'll see kind of what they do. I mean, they could just trade for Deshaun Watson and make me the happiest fan ever. Then I'll actually buy a Broncos quarterback jersey because we all know how that went, Brock Osweiler and Manning. But I don't know. I mean, I think the Jimmy G one, I think he's going to the Patriots. It's an actual take. I don't think that's just like a hot take. That's what I told my buddy this morning. They're kind of doing the whole taking advantage of trades they already made, in a sense. They traded away Trent Brown for like a 5th, and they just got him back for like a 7th.
Bill,
2-year rental, I guess, for the Raiders. I don't know. They're going to trade away Jimmy G. They're going to get him back. I mean, but the Jimmy G one's different because I think that helps both sides. Whereas the Trent Brown one, like John Gruden just pulling his puppet strings and making 7 and 9, 6 and 10 moves per usual. So I don't know. We'll see. I think the Jimmy G, getting rid of Jimmy G for what, a second, you think? Is that a fair trade for him? I don't even know like what a good value.
I'm not making the decisions. And Ryan and I have kind of argued about this because he still sees the potential. I just the whole like the only pro Jimmy argument, like literally the only thing pro Jimmy people can throw out there is that we're an overthrow away from winning the Super Bowl. That's 100% true.
Well,
if your boy E-Money Sanders is a little bit faster, or Jimmy doesn't overthrow him, Patrick Mahomes doesn't make $500 million, the Niners win the Super Bowl, totally different conversation. The reality is he's not going to win a game on his own. He's not. He's injury prone at this point of his career. He's been hurt multiple seasons with multiple injuries. He's not going to win a game on his own. He's a game manager, and that's fine. We had Alex Smith for 12 years. We've already done that. We need somebody with some flair. Just being handsome doesn't get it done for me. You need to be handsome and exciting, and Jimmy's only one, and that's not good enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think to a certain point, like, you can only be so much of a game manager before your team's ready for that next step. I think that's kind of where the Broncos are at too, where you got to kind of find that next something. I don't know what that is. And I mean, yeah, I mean, you can get carried. The take is the Super Bowl take, but I mean, Brady got carried to 5 of the 6 rings anyways too. So it's kind of the same concept going forward.
Wins or wins. Look, and again, if the Niners won that game, then I probably wouldn't be as bitter. But I mean, I watch them every single Sunday, and I'm not excited. That's all. That's all it is. I want a rookie. I want a rookie to at least give us, kind of that new heartbeat. Or Sam Darnold really is my guy. I think he makes the most sense. He'd be the cheapest. He's still young. I mean,
what, 20, 23, 24?
Yeah, he's been in the league like 4 years, and he's younger than Joe Burrow. So
yeah, but he sucks because he played on a bad team.
He sucks because Adam Gase sucks. That's all right, man. Let's get out of here. That is the free agent and franchise tag talk. It was supposed to be a quick recap. Obviously, we turned it into a full episode. Not a problem there. There's a lot to talk about. We will be back with you next week. Make sure you tune in the rest of this week and subscribe right here on the channel to the Candlestick Kids. Leave us a rating, a review, and give us any questions below. And also follow us on Twitter at TCK_pod and Instagram at fantasyfootball_TCK. You can find Lucas as well, Lucas Kaser 2 on Twitter. Catch Bobby and Dweez for the next 2 episodes breaking down the AFC divisional coaching changes. A lot of coaching changes went down in the AFC the last 2 weeks before this. They had put it down in the NFC. So if you're looking to catch up on some fantasy content with the coaching changes, which we would argue on this podcast that coaching changes is maybe the most important piece of the entire offseason. That includes free agency, that includes the NFL draft. Coaching changes matter so much more than we give it credit in the fantasy industry. So Dweez and Bobby are hard at work bringing you that over the last 4 episodes. All right, Lucas, it's always a pleasure, man. Thanks for joining in. TCK Podders, appreciate you. Make sure to give us a like and a follow and a subscribe wherever you can, and we'll catch you next time on the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast. For my man, Lucas Kaser, I'm your boy, Sky Guasco, and we are out of here.